Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai here, and this week's video is going to be a bit, interesting. I'm doing it now rather than later as a request from one of my viewers. I'll be reviewing the anime Sword Art Online. It currently consists of 2 series, and a movie is on the way. To be honest, I find this anime to be an anomaly. While it was airing, and a while afterward, everyone I knew and spoke to really enjoyed it. Now, however, a couple Google searches will reveal an enormous amount of hatred toward this anime. Now, I'm not ignorant. I've heard a myriad of arguments trying to justify the anime as trash, and I simply don't feel the same way. As a result, I'll be giving this anime my traditional, spoiler-free review, and then I'll branch off to address a handful of complaints regarding the anime and why I don't agree with them. That part will contain spoilers, so if you want to avoid them, you can stop when I give the point of no return. So why make a video with a controversial opinion right from the get-go? I honestly feel I wouldn't have the right to speak about anime and recommend what I love if I weren't completely honest with my viewers. Another reason is that I'm not alone. Out of over 609,000 registered users on my anime list, SAO currently holds a 7.85 average rating. I believe anime should be enjoyed, and that sort of objective statistic claims that a lot of people are pleased. Whether you find it overrated or not just your thing, I'm here to support the idea that this is an anime worth watching and loving. Logistically, you can find Sword Art Online on Netflix, Hulu, and Crunchyroll, as well as on DVD and Blu-ray from Aniplex. Let's full dive in. The premise of Sword Art Online is that in a future with advanced virtual reality technology, a new online multiplayer RPG just released to the Japanese public. It's a huge hit and has gotten tons of players. After its official launch day, all the players of Sword Art Online find that they are unable to log out of the game, and are told by the game's creator, Akihiko Kayaba, that if they die in the game, their nerve gear headsets will literally fry their brains in the real world. Essentially, he's turned the VR MMO into a death game, and the only way to survive is to clear all 100 floors of the game's world, Aincrad. Our protagonist, Kirito, played the game while it was in its beta testing phase, and as such, has an advantage over the other players. Understanding the dilemma he's in, he sets out to become the best player he can, confident that he'll reach the end alive. No matter which season of SAO you look at, the art style is generally really solid and well produced. It has a bias toward the beginning of the series, but in general the characters are cute, and they move very dynamically. The anime creates a great visual vocabulary of how the game works, incorporating first-person moments and in-game HUDs. The artists do a wonderful job illustrating just how SAO would feel if you were playing it. So yeah, it's typically very stunning visually, and that style remains fairly consistent throughout. We've got a pretty large cast of characters, albeit a lot of them serve a slight role as a moe harem for Kirito. Kirito himself is interesting in that he's a techie in his own right, being aware and fond of Kayaba before playing the game. It's best to think of him like a fairly average dude with some epic gamer skills. Our leading lady is Asuna, a girl who finds confidence in her ability to clear the game, and rises high in her guild's ranks, scoring an awesome reputation. There's Klein, a bro Kirito meets on the first day playing the game, and they remain loyal friends throughout. Next is Silica, a young girl who finds companionship from an in-game pet dragon, Pina. Lisbeth is a spirited blacksmith. Egil is a reliable warrior and merchant, and Yui is a mysterious AI. Obviously these characters relate in the form of a cooperative RPG party, but their chemistry works out well. Later on, we're introduced to Suguha, Kirito's cousin, and Sinon, a badass sniper. The only issue I have with the cast is the harem element, which to some could be a huge plus, but I find it a tad annoying to have most of the females fawn over Kirito. Now, the story is what typically throws people off, and understandably so. As it starts out, we're mostly driven by the questions, can Kirito survive the death game? What's happening to all the players' actual bodies? And why would Kayaba make such a terrifying game? The narrative is quite long, and these questions get answered and raise new ones several times, but they mainly focus around Kirito and his gaming experiences. I will say that, technically, all the questions get answered, or we're left with enough clues to figure them out on our own, making this a complete anime, story-wise. Not all arcs are as strong as others, but they each have their own appeal. I'll discuss the plot more in depth after the initial review. The various openings of SAO are really catchy and fun, especially the first one, Crossing Field. They may not be packed to the brim with symbolism, but they certainly get me pumped for each episode, and I always find myself watching them. A moment that always riles me up is Asuna's badass power stride. This is definitely an anime with an important soundtrack. Yuki Kajiura works her magic here, and creates a number of empowering melodies that really enhance the emotions of various battle scenes, and soothe us during dramatic ones. It definitely has the kind of soundtrack that you can listen to all on its own. The voice acting, in both English and Japanese, is pretty solid. Each has a dynamic range of vocal textures, and they all perform quite well. This time I'd say Kirito himself is a vocal highlight, played by Yoshitsugu Matsuoka in Japanese, rocking it with some awesome Japanese battle cries. And Bryce Papenbrook, who I've always enjoyed hearing since he played Asbel in Tales of Grace's F. I think Sword Art Online really struck a chord with people who loved the VR MMO world of .hack, but were yearning for a bit more fun and intensity with less philosophy and psychology. My recommendation? Amazing. Watch it for the sake of having experienced it, and you'll find a lot you can love. What can I say? I'd be lying if I said otherwise. That said, I'll be taking on some devil's advocate issues now. So if you don't want spoilers, I'd recommend coming back after watching the entire series. I'll start off with one of the biggest complaints tossed at this anime, the supposed damseling of Asuna. In the Alfheim Online arc, Asuna is taken prisoner by Kayaba's rival Sugo, stuck at a birdcage with a skimpy outfit, and later she gets nabbed by some perverted tentacle avatars while trying to make an escape. A lot of people have called this out for taking a strong female character and reducing her to just a damsel, ruining her status as a badass. Now, I could understand wanting to see more of Asuna ass-kicking, and not getting much in this arc, but people act like the writers completely broke her character. Honestly, I feel that's really unfair to Asuna as a person. Women have to deal with struggles that most men don't, and that often includes perverts and rapists. Asuna is an attractive young woman with rich parents, and a scumbag's motivation to harm her is high because of that. When SAO's players were logged out, Sugo snuck in a few into his own game to use for experiments. He literally nabbed Asuna and plopped her into a world where he's God. Asuna isn't given the option of fighting back. She's not in the real world, and the game is limited. Even then, she acts in her power to try escaping, and later alerting Kirito to her location. If Sugo were into cute guys, he could have done the exact same thing to Kirito, and the roles would have reversed. Would everyone abandon Kirito in droves? I hope not. As far as the narrative goes, Asuna just had the worst circumstances for being kidnapped. You may not like the turn the narrative took in that arc, but saying it negated all of the awesome stuff she did, and would later do, is pretty cruel. The other most popular complaint is the presence of plot holes, namely the Deus Ex Machina ending of the Aincrad arc. I'd argue that, with the right mindset, there are no plot holes to this at all. Here's how it goes down. Kirito figures out ahead of schedule that the character Heathcliff is actually Kayaba. As such, Kayaba offers to Kirito the chance to fight him, the final boss, right then. Kirito agrees, and Kayaba puts everyone but Kirito under paralysis so they can't interfere. The two fight, fair and square, until Kayaba goes in for a killing strike, and whoa, Asuna takes the hit and dies. With no motivation, Kirito is defeated shortly after, but is magically revived and able to deliver a winning attack. Kirito wins the death game, reunites with Asuna, who surprisingly hadn't had her brain fried yet, and everyone gets logged out. People hate this because it breaks so many rules the anime previously established. How did Asuna break the paralysis? Why did Kirito come back to life? And why wasn't Asuna KFC like everyone else who dies for more than a few seconds? The answer ties right into the arc's major dramatic question. Why did Kayaba create this death game in the first place? By building Aincrad, Kayaba had shown himself to be a fan of traditional fantasy worlds, and he wanted to create one as realistically as possible, playing the bad guy. In those moments, he had the chance to win or lose as the villain, to create a happy or tragic ending to his simulated world. Kayaba wanted a hero to come vanquish him, and that's why he gave Kirito, the player with the most potential, the ability to dual wield. Craving a dramatic conclusion to the world he dedicated his life to building, he secretly removed Asuna's paralysis and gave Kirito a biased fighting chance to win. Essentially, he cheated to make himself lose, for the sake of a hero vanquishes evil ending to his dream world. As for Asuna not dying in the real world, Kayaba likely prevented the code from sending a killing order to her nerve gear. Kayaba truly is the god of his self-created world, and he has the ability to do whatever he wants. And that desire just so happened to be a happy ending at his defeat. It's not explained that way explicitly, but it certainly ties up all the loose ends and confusion. Another scene under fire is when Asuna and Kirito are by an in-game admin terminal as their virtual daughter, Yui, is getting deleted from the Cardinal system. Out of seemingly nowhere, Kirito rushes to the terminal and begins typing like a madman in order to make a copy of Yui's data and put it in an item stored locally on his nerve gear. It's been criticized in two ways. How could Kirito know how to use that terminal so quickly? And if he could have copied Yui, he probably could have changed the code so that people could log out again. Well, the beginning of SAO shows Kirito having some experience programming, and we confirm this later in the second series when he's designing augmented reality software for Yui. It's a tad extreme, but it's at least plausible that Kirito could have navigated that terminal properly. As for him being able to fix the death game, well, that just demonstrates one's lack of programming knowledge. It's a lot easier to copy data than it is to manipulate it. For instance, I can go to pretty much any website and make a copy of its pages by saving them to my hard drive. What I can't do, without being the actual admin, is hop online and change a website's code. I can't code the YouTube homepage to redirect to a porno site, for instance. There's a possibility that copying Yui's data had less security restriction than modifying it. As for logging people out, you have to imagine that at least some skilled hackers or programmers in the real world tried to crack Kayaba's code and free everyone from the outside. And I'm sure Kayaba would have prepared for that. Again, no actual plot holes. In general, not just for Asuna's damsel status, people disliked the Alfheim arc. After the Aincrad arc, the insane, high-stakes death game came to an end. And with the characters no longer fighting to survive, the narrative became a lot less intense. I actually enjoyed the break from the tragedy, and I was very motivated to see Kirito help free Asuna from Alfheim. I like how it gave Kirito the chance to bring his in-game experience out into the real world. Sure, Kirito's cousin tried way too hard to make him a sister slammer, and the characters would no longer die outside of the game, but rescuing Asuna, reuniting with one's beloved after such a horrific experience, felt very epic in its own right. A lot of people complain about the harem element, and I'll agree that it's certainly annoying. Kirito and Asuna get married in SAO, and are very devoted to each other. After this is made clear to the other girls, namely Lisbeth and Silica, they continue to pursue Kirito for their own romantic agenda. Despite some flirting, however, things never really escalate further, and Kirito still remains loyal to Asuna, so it never bothered me. He never actually makes a move on another woman. Some people have also complained that Sugo is a poorly written villain. Well, Kayaba was apparently a genius programmer that Sugo thought was wasting his potential working on SAO. To outdo his rival, Sugo used the game to imprison and analyze a percentage of the players moved to ALO. He planned to gather data on the human brain and sell it off to the US. He's also a prick who wants both Asuna's body and fortune, so he uses his admin privileges to toy with Asuna in-game and force her into marriage outside the game. These all seem like perfectly solid motivations for a bad guy, so I simply can't understand the issue people have with him. I suspect it's because people feel the writers were trying too hard to make him seem evil by essentially raping Asuna. Gotta say though, rape is evil, and it does show off the evil of a villain. It's not something fiction should have to shy away from. Lastly, for those wanting a straight-up shonen anime, Kirito as a character seems way too overpowered and Mary Sue-esque as a main protagonist. While I'll admit he hardly seems to struggle in combat, for as strong as he is, he does lose from time to time, and certainly meets his match in the series. He's a pretty cool dude, and the abundant cosplays will prove it so long as you aren't expecting him to be just like Luffy, Naruto, Ichigo, or Goku. All in all, the reason I love SAO is simple. There's a lot to love. The art is often gorgeous. It has 3 different awesome female characters, Asuna kicks ass, and her romance with Kirito is beautiful, and that they save and support each other. Sinon's also a badass, as she manages to confront and overcome her post-traumatic stress disorder by playing a sexy sniper in an online game. Yuki and her life-threatening ailment forces her to remain in quarantine, and there's wonder in being able to see her live passionately in-game. I never understood the hate, and I'm not about to either. So there you have it. One of only a small few critical reviews actually praising Sword Art Online. I'm not saying you'd have to love it like I do, but I hope you've been able to see why others do, and that there's a lot to enjoy from various angles. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and comment below. If you want to see more anime lists, discussions, recommendations, reviews, and let's plays, subscribe to my channel. Until the next video, celebrate your fandom.